Welcome to our next episode today. I have a very different guest because we're going to be talking about something very specific that's going to help you being healthier. My guest is Miguel Sevilla. He has been a life and fitness enthusiast and been training customers for the last 20 years in modalities such as personal training, Pilates, and Gyrotonic. And his passion for the last 6 years has been neuroscience applied to performance. I am really eager to hear more about this one. And he's really excited about the potential that this opens regarding any other aspects of our lives, because performing better at running faster, at lifting heavier, at singing, or at learning Chinese is controlled by the same software, the brain. And that's the topic for today, the workout and the brain connection. Welcome, Miguel.
Hi, I'm glad to be there.
So nice to have you here. I know a little bit of your work, and I'm very excited because I think that you work in such different ways than what we usually see in the gym, what personal trainers are doing. You are very, very different, and that's why you're here today. And I'm that aspect of your training and neuroscience. I really want to ask you, what's your story? I mean, how did you get to here? What's your experience? You're originally from Belgium. I know you've had a lot of experience from Europe. What brought you to this point?
Well, let's start when I started actually practicing sports since I was probably 7, 8 years old, being in Belgium. Of course, the traditional sport being soccer. Then I went through many more modalities: gymnastic, volleyball, martial arts. Martial arts was a big thing for me, and basically I dedicated a lot of time to that. I wanted to be good. There was all those films about martial arts, Bruce Lee, stuff like that, very inspiring stuff. And so I did really work a lot toward the improving. At some point, I was selected to participate to the European Championship in Switzerland, and I really had invested much time, and too much time in my perception. I wasn't really enjoying it anymore. It was a lot of work. Everything was focused towards survival on the ring, because it was all performance is in a boxing ring. The goal is to knock out your opponent. We had protection, gloves, foot gear, helmet. So it was really intense stuff. And I was a bit burned out because I was investing all my time in that. So 2 weeks before going to Switzerland, I just said to my trainer, hey, I'm fed up. I'm stopping now. And I switched to something that would be much more fun. So I switched to rock climbing. And so what I learned is that now retrospectively, what I can say, if I was there with what I know now, I probably would have done it very, very differently, probably be more efficient at the way I was training. But those days, it was just about the famous no pain, no gain thing. So you have to work hard, more is always better. And now, of course, we know it is not. So I think I was just doing too much, maybe too much of the bad stuff, too much of the stuff that even when it hurt. And I wasn't enjoying it anymore. So going to the championship, what did it mean? It meant that if I did not become a champion, I had to work harder to get there. Or if I did become a champion, I have to work even harder to maintain myself at the top. So the perspective was not very attractive. And that's how I ended my career in martial arts. It wasn't really a career, just more like a hobby, but really requiring lots of time. And I was just fed up with that. So I tried to learn from that. And that's what I'm trying to do even now, and trying to keep learning about that, trying to be more efficient. And that's what really was a revelation for me when I discovered how neuroscience can come to help you be better at whatever you do. Performance, but performance is everything. I mean, you perform doing whatever sports you do, you perform being a housewife, perform being a parent. I mean, it's all about performance. You need energy. Energy is not just running. Energy is being alert, is being focus is being awakened from 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. All that is energy, all that is performance. So you decide how you do that in awareness or not, and using what your brain can provide to help you in that way or not. Hence, my really big thing is we have a limited pool of energy, so it's depending on how well you use it.
Okay. And you mentioned something that I really want to touch base on. You mentioned no pain, no gain. And I remember when you suggested a workout plan for me, and you actually said, you can be done in less time than what you're doing right now. And I was surprised because I would be thinking, well, I have to work harder, I have to work longer in order to have results. But you said the other way around is actually better. So what's with this no pain, no gain? And how can we then work out in less time, but being more efficient at it?
Well, you have to understand something. The brain doesn't care about making you a better runner. You mentioned at the beginning. It doesn't care about making you a better runner, about allowing you to lift heavier, about making you swim faster. It doesn't care about that. It cares about your survival. So if each time you work out, you decide to go at your maximum intensity you can perform that day, and you really reach that limit, and you still try to push harder because you say, oh, I feel the pain, no, I have to push through that. You are sending a very powerful threat signal to your brain, and the brain says, whoa, what's that thing coming? What's that threat coming? And so what would the normal well-designed brain do? Not push you through that. It would say, hey, let's slow down everything here, otherwise we can damage something, we can injure the structure. And that's the function of the brain. And the brain is really good at that. So the brain will win. And if you say, oh, I'm here in Minnesota. Minnesota has a reputation of being Vikings, being tough, and you see that a lot here. Say, oh, I'm here, I'm tough, I just push through the pain. That's a battle they will lose for sure, because they can try to push through that. What happens? The brain says, oh, that dude is trying to be smarter than me. No way, I will send him some stiffness in the joints, so he slows down. Of course, the Viking is not smart sometimes, so he says, okay, I will keep pushing through because I'm here from Minnesota, I'm strong, I push through that. The brain says, okay, stiffness is not enough, let's send some pain then on top of the stiffness. And that keeps escalating until one day the Viking says, okay, maybe I should rest. And that's it. As simple as that. Maybe he will lose 2 years before that happens. It's too bad. But that principle is super basic.
So when you say the brain that perceives then too much workout as you being in danger, right? It's a threat to the body. So does that mean that we are kind of in a stress mode then at that point?
Well, there is stress and stress, yes. Stress per se doesn't mean much. We are all the time being stressed by many things. Stress is an excess of something. So when does it become an excess? That's very personal, depending to any person. A certain amount of stimulus, for instance, light or noise, can be totally normal for someone and totally very bothering for someone else. That's stress. With the same type of stimulus, the same applies to exercise. You can be super motivated to exercise, but not used to. So when you start suddenly from zero practice to medium to a high intensity practice, of course, it's something totally unusual, and the brain says, whoa, what is happening? The brain works with patterns of recognition. To feel safe, it needs to be able to predict. And how does it predict? Just by going through all a bank of data it has piled up from the past experiences. If you have been, when you were a kid, let's say you were walking with your mom in the street and a dog did bite you. That's something that's in your memory. It was a very threatening experience, traumatizing. Okay, it happened 20 years ago. 20 years later, you are walking the street. You see a dog unleashed, running towards you. You have a way to predict what's happening, correctly or not, doesn't matter. But what you perceive is a threat based on a previous experience.
Yeah.
So you want to have experiences of that. If something you have never done, like a super intense workout is there happening, you have no way to predict it because you have never done that. Yes. And you never had progressions to bring you there. So there is zero prediction possible. So the brain isn't like that. You say, whoa, that's potentially very traumatizing. Let's put the lid on that and prevent too much damage from happening.
Wow, this actually explains a lot. I never knew that brain works in this way when it comes to...
Oh, the brain, yeah. I'm just giving you really basic stuff. It's so much more complex, yes. I'm just a basic user, so I wouldn't say I'm just interested. I'm taking trainings in that field, designed for trainers to train their clients. That's what I'm taking. But there are people above me who are 10 times smarter, who really research that, who go through studies done, who really show amazing results of how people really can benefit from very little time spent on doing the right things, as opposed to spending a lot of time doing the wrong things that bring no results. You can get amazing results super fast by doing the right things and with little effort.
So there's hope for all of us.
That is the thing. Yeah. This is called the science of hope, because it's brain science. They have seen now, I mean, maybe 20, 30 years ago, they would say, oh, when you reach age 25, 27, your brain reaches its limit, it cannot develop. All the structures, all the ramifications, the neurons, the synapses, they are all there. You cannot change that. That's what they say then. How much hope does it give you? Not much. Once you are 30, say, oh, now I can only just go downhill. They discovered a few years ago already that what they believed then, 85% of that is obsolete. It doesn't apply anymore because the neuroscience is a fast evolving field of research, and they're discovering more and more amazing stuff. Among other things, one of the big chunk of thing that gives that is positive is about neuroplasticity, meaning everything that is a neurocircuitry is by definition adaptable. You can train it until your very last day. Maybe you are less efficient when you are past 50, past 60 than when you are 20, but you can still bring changes. Yeah. Which is the reason to be of the nervous system. The nervous system is basically what you receive. You receive information, you process it, and then you send adapted response. It can be movement, it can be hormonal response, it can be visual adaptation, it can be all that. But first of all, you get a stimulus. Right now, the way you are right now in front of me, you are processing about 11 million information per second, just doing nothing. Why is that happening? For you to be able to stay alive, you are processing how much air do you have, what's the ideal pace of breathing for you, how much light is around you, how is the gravity working, what's your position related to gravity. All that is automatically processed. The good thing is automatic. You don't have to be aware about that. It's called the autonomous system. You don't really think about that. It's a good thing. Yeah. But that's the reason why we have a nervous system, to adapt to our environment. So neuroplasticity works at every level. Everything nervous is by definition adaptable to what is around it.
You know what? I think I have a perfect example about the science of hope that you just mentioned. I think we spoke about this once in the past. I posted a picture maybe last year sometime on the Facebook about two women, both 75 years old. One is bodybuilder. I mean, she looks like she has a body of a 20-year-old.
Mhm.
And the other one is a 75-year-old woman that we know from when we were young, in the wheelchair, overweight, looking really, really old. And isn't this what shows us that we actually choose which path we want to take?
Absolutely, absolutely. We are creatures. We adapt to what we decide. You often see poor choices made, for instance, in senior centers, places where seniors who don't have family where they can stay with, they go in those places and they decide to live there. So maybe they were living in a house and suddenly they move to a place where they don't have to climb stairs anymore because it's specifically designed for senior people, where nothing is higher than shoulder or head level. Okay, that's easier, but easier doesn't mean it's better for you. What happens then? You are completely shrinking your box of movement. If you don't climb stairs anymore, what happens to those muscles that you were using to climb those stairs? They are not used anymore. What happens to the amplitude, the range of motion you used to go up with your arm and grab the cookie jar? You don't need that range of motion anymore because you have to lift your arms less high. What happens to those devices you have now? Like they make smartphones with bigger numbers, bigger letters, bigger keyboard. Your vision is not even stimulated enough because everything is easy. So why would you get better at that if instead of getting better, they make things easier? That's as simple as that. You don't have the need to adapt because there is no such need.
Wow, that's really, really interesting perspective. I
Yeah,
haven't heard anything else.
same thing happens with glasses. In many cases, you can improve one or other skill in the vision. So I often speak about glasses as crutches for the eyes.
Mm-hmm.
If you
I know, I used to have them years ago, and now I don't. I just said I don't need them, and I didn't use them, and my vision is normal, right?
Yeah, if you always look through lenses that distort the vision to allow you to see better, why would your eyes do the work of seeing better? They don't need to. The lenses, the glasses are there to do the job for your eyes.
Yeah, and you know what, Miguel? I know you're using vision as part of the training when you're working out with your clients.
Yeah.
How do you use vision when you basically do, physical training with them?
Well, the way I meant, as I mentioned before, did I mention before? I'm not sure. Maybe I mentioned that when we were speaking before the interview. I like it. Well, yeah, I compare it to the car. The car is the engine, the tires, the brakes, and the components. They are all important. Even we tend to put the emphasis on the engine. So here, when you speak about training, typically, unfortunately, I would say in 90+% of the cases you see in the gyms, the trainers, good trainers, not bad guys, they're just trying to really help their customers, but they mostly train the musculoskeletal system, the muscles. That's what they do. And they never think about, wait a second, that person has a problem with his or her balance, or really the other stuff is not working, or is dizzy easily, or whatever, or they don't even think about assessing the vision. As I was telling you, when the brain senses something is not working well, it will tend to slow you down. If you try to push weights and your vision is not working well, you have two things that are antagonistic there. So sometimes I like to assess, not with strength, but with a range of motion. It's the same idea. If something is holding you back, if your vision is not working perfectly, and I'm only using vision because it's what we are speaking about now, if your vision is not working well enough, and you try to do simply like I like to use arm raises, and you see, okay, that person can really lift his or her arm at 90 degree, and then it starts being stiff or painful. I have them do sometimes just 1 minute of vision drills, like exercises, and instantly in 1 or 2 minutes, they gain 20, 30, 40 degrees, or the arm goes straight against the ear. Yeah. And that's instant improvement. Instant. Why? Because the brain says, oh, we are doing cool stuff for the eyes and we respond well. So suddenly it's much safer to move because the eyes are not an obstacle anymore. It's the same principle I was telling you before. The exact same thing. It's just an application to how to use the vision to improve another area.
Wow. Yeah, and I know because you've done this with me, like using eye motions to adjust my arms and the mobility. And it was like, wow, that was...
You have to understand, Milena, that when you look around you, most people, I mean, you see, if you ask them the way they live, mostly they spend a lot of time, especially now, looking at the screen at the same distance. My screen is probably 2 feet from me. And that's how they spend sometimes 8, 10 hours. Maybe they have a desk job where they already spend 8 hours a day. Then they go home, they watch a TV or they play video games, or so it's always a screen in front of you. So how many of your visual skills do you use or you practice to improve? None. You are doing nothing to train your eyes. One of the main principles in neuroscience, one of them is if you don't use it, you lose it. There's no need for a skill to be maintained if it is not used. Whatever your level is, it applies.
Yeah, can you give us and our listeners an advice? What kind of, let's say, eye exercises could we do either to improve vision or mobility? Just something simple that you don't need to show us, because majority of people is going to listen to this on iTunes. But something.
Okay, there are many. One of the most basic things, and especially nowadays we live in a society where we get constant, we are bombarded by auditive and visual stimulus that distracts us all the time. One of the main things is to work on gaze stabilization. Imagine you are put a post-it on your wall, place yourself at an arm's length from the poster, draw a dot on the center of the post-it, and try for 30 seconds to keep staring at the dot. Gaze stabilization, the ability to focus your gaze, to stabilize it without distraction, is one of the most basic things. If you cannot do that, it's not even worth trying to practice anything else. That's the most basic stuff. And then if you have the opportunity to work with a partner, while you do that, you ask your partner to stand in front of you, or kind of in front of you, and look at your eyes, how they are doing the job. If they're constantly flickering, that shows you have a hard time, and you probably will notice that it's not easy for you. Now, warning, working with the eye is very powerful. One thing is when you work with senses, anything that is the closest it is to the brain, the more powerful it is. So I've had people sometimes that will start crying or becoming aggressive because they were really, really, really bothered by that. So again, don't try to push through. If you feel uncomfortable, dizzy, just stop it. That means you are not used to that at all, and you should really do it at homeopathic doses. Practice maybe 10 seconds at the beginning.
And so when we do this, what is the benefit of doing this? Like, do we focus better, or what is it?
Well, the benefit is that being able to do that is it's training your eyes to do one of those basic skills, which has many other ones building upon that one. And what it does is it reduces the level of threat. If using your eyes, who are not performing well, is constantly a source of a threat, that's not good. That will impact on every other areas. If you start working on your eyes, it could be anything else. You can be starting on your eyes, on your audition, on your olfactory senses, on your joint mobility. Doesn't matter, but we are speaking about the eyes, so I think about the eyes. But if working from the eyes, you can diminish the level of threat, everything else will improve. They made a study. I think it was a football football college team in Cincinnati. They had, I think I mentioned it to you when I saw you at some point, they had a ratio of 10% concussion rate per year. So that's huge. That means for 10 games you play, you have one concussion. A concussion is not something benign. It's a brain injury. We call it a mild MTBI, mild traumatic brain injury, or TBI, traumatic brain injury. That's never good. That is proven to generate some cases of premature dementia, Alzheimer's. There's a big thing going on here in the States for the professional football league, because they are trying to look for compensation because of that. Anyway, they had that college team doing 6 weeks of only vision training added to their routine. They added vision training, not a lot. That means maybe they would do half hour per day, even, I'm not sure they even did every day, but they did that for 6 weeks. They reassessed and they got to, from 10%, they got to 1.4%.
Oh, wow, that's huge.
Why? Because training your visual skills in an environment where you have moving targets, moving projectiles it's thrown at you or you want to be following, and where yourself you are moving, running on the field, I mean, you have to be using much more than the accuracy skill that is tested when you go to your eye doctor that tells you, okay, you're good, you have 2/20. That's far from being enough to be performing at the highest level. You have to be able to have your eyes diverging and converging correctly to be able to change your focal point. If you look far or close, your eyes have to move. To be able to move your eyes, you have to have the oculomotor muscles fit, because the eyes move because there are muscles attached to that. So basically, when you do eye training with me, you do bodybuilding for the eyes. You also need to have not fair, but even more than that, a good peripheral vision, so that when you are looking in front of you, you at the same time see what is happening around you to see a potential danger coming towards you and run away from it or take any action necessary. So those are the things that allowed them to go from 10 to 1.4%. Just became better at predicting the environment. They will get more information.
That's fantastic. And I know that you mentioned to me on several occasions, let's say, how can I raise my performance at the gym? That if I look up when I'm doing squats, it's going to be easier than if I look down.
Yeah, that's another thing. We are wired in a way that looking up goes with extension, looking down goes with flexion. So we are wired that way. So if you do the opposite, it obviously doesn't go in the direction of better performance.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Do you have any final advice about the workout for our listeners?
Well, I would say every workout is potentially good or is potentially really bad. Keep in mind that the goal of a workout, we call it training, is to end up your training by being better than you were when you started. Even if it's in 1 hour, you're supposed to be better after an hour than you were when you started. So one of the things you want to avoid is finish with pain, with exhaustion. You want to avoid that, because what you're creating is a powerful, again, threat signal. And if you do that session after session, you are habituating your brain to say, oh, okay, we are going to work out now. Here comes the threat signal again. So it might anticipate that by just shutting you down each time, because you're using it, you're habituating the brain to be threatened each time you work out. So yeah, heavy sometimes, not all the time. There is so basically the older advice, listen to your body, is there, very valid, but listen to your body means don't keep reinforcing a threat signal through your sessions.
That makes a lot of sense. Yes, that's now I
and
know.
so people, I know I'm telling that to you, There are people who cannot hear that. They need to sweat, they need to pump, they need to feel pain. Okay, they need to have the experience. They need to maybe get injured before they understand. I was one of those, so I know what I'm speaking about. I need to be almost injured and in pain to feel like, okay, I had a good workout. I just wish I didn't know what I know now at that time. But okay, I mean, everyone has to has his experiences.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you so much for being here, Miguel. This was very enlightening. I love the science of hope. I think that's going to give lots of hope to all our listeners that we really don't need to age as fast as we were told to, that we can do something about it. I love the way you're using vision in your training. I'd love to have you back at some point and talk a little bit more about this. It's very interesting.
Thank you, Milena. It was a pleasure being there.